Penske might have just poached a top prospect from a rival manufacturer. We have more updates on the ongoing antitrust case between the teams and NASCAR. That and so much more news we have to cover today. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Talking NASCAR, episode number 20. Hope your Tuesday is going well. Today, unfortunately, I have no power rankings, even though it would be custom for me to do so right after my race recap and analysis that I made yesterday of Sunday's Sonoma Cup Series race. So go check that out if you want to get some full analysis of that. But today, I have a lot of news to cover in the NASCAR world. A lot of this, I will say, is from late last week that I had a video or episode ready to post last week, but I ended up not being able to post it due to some file issues. And by the time the race started and the race weekend was underway, I didn't have time to post it. And I just overall been behind with some episodes this week. So I'm hoping to catch up on it today. And tomorrow I'll be able to get back to my power rankings. Let's start with some of last week's news. First, Junior Motorsports posted this cryptic tweet or post on X last week with a video of a brick kind of like moving down the screen. I'm looking at it right here, and ended up having the post finish out with an outline of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway oval circuit with Carson Kowalp's signature in the middle. Right when I saw this, I could either suspect two things. Either Junior Motorsports is coming out with a really cool throwback paint scheme reveal, kind of similar to what Junior Motorsports and Carson Kvapil did at Darlington earlier this year in the spring with a throwback to Jamie McMurray. Or this could be the possible, like, cryptic trailer of a new announcement for a possible Cup Series opportunity for Carson Kvapil and Junior Motorsports. Junior Motorsports made their Cup Series debut back in February at the Daytona 500 with Justin Allgaier in the number 40 Traveler Whiskey, number 40 Chevrolet Camaro with some support from Hendrick Motorsports. And they ended up finishing the race pretty solid. They qualified their way in via the Thursday night qualifying duels. So I'm hoping that this little cryptic tweak is a prelude to an announcement about a possible Junior Motorsports entry in the Brickyard 400. It makes sense. The Brickyard 400 is a prestigious event in the NASCAR garage, and can't think of a bigger track and bigger event for Junior Motorsports to make their second ever NASCAR Cup Series start. So we'll have to keep updated on that, and I will be right here when that announcement drops. If it's a Jamie McMurray throwback or if it's a Junior Motorsports announcement about a Cup Series entry. Now, moving on to a Martinsville tradition. If you are not aware, the Martinsville Victory Lane tradition is that the winner of the Cup Series races from Martinsville receive a grandfather clock as their trophy. So this week, though, or last week, I should say, Howard Miller, the clock manufacturer responsible, his company makes the grandfather clocks that are used as the trophies, announced that his company will cease operations after this season or later this season. He said, quote, "Our business has been directly impacted by tariffs that have increased the cost of essential components unavailable domestically and driven out specialty suppliers of business, making it unsustainable for us to continue our operations." This is definitely some sad pieces of news because it's one of NASCAR's oldest traditions. It's one of my favorite yet underrated traditions in the world of NASCAR, and I'm really hoping that this tradition will continue for a very long time. And it's unclear what NASCAR will do if they are looking at alternatives, if they are planning on a different trophy. But a little bit of good news: all 195 employees of Howard Miller's clock manufacturer company did receive dispensation checks and is getting help seeking future jobs. So things are looking up for those employees. I'm glad that everything will be hopefully resolved for all of them, and I wish them luck in their future endeavors. And I wish that NASCAR will find an alternative because this is one of the better traditions in the NASCAR world. And that's just my two state on it. Let me know down in the comments, what is your favorite NASCAR tradition? Dale Earnhardt Jr. on X was very vocal about this. He said on X, quote, "Whomever makes this next version better make them exactly like the previous versions. Don't get cute and F this up." So Dale Earnhardt Jr. feels pretty passionate about this. So so hopefully the clock manufacturer who will hopefully get the next contract does exactly what Dale says. So a lot of pressure from Dale Earnhardt Jr. Now, last week there was a bit of a little bit of a discussion on X about the amount of road courses on the current NASCAR Cup Series schedule and how many road courses there may be on the future NASCAR schedule. And last week I also made my NASCAR 2026 Cup Series prediction schedule predictions, so I would like to give a little chip in here, I should say. So Pete Pistone, who is the host of the SiriusXM NASCAR radio show, said this on X, quote, "The criticism from some today about too many road courses is ironic to me because fans literally strongly asked for more just a handful of years ago. So many callers to the channel, and as this story reminds, on other platforms." And below that post, he linked to a article, a old motorsport.com article from about 10 or a little less than 10 years ago. So I'm proud of Pete Pistone for doing his homework and kind of bringing the evidence to the table and justifying his claims. And I say to that, he's not wrong. And I think that road courses, I think context is very important here. Back then, when he made that article and is kind of referencing this time stand, we were in a completely different car generation. The Gen 6, Gen 5 car raced dramatically different compared to the next gen car. Nowadays, the next gen car has so much grip on road courses that it's hard to pass. The playing field is so equal, and the next gen car doesn't really put on that great of a performance at road courses. But the Gen 6 and Gen 5 car raced pretty well at road courses. They kind of lumbered around. It was difficult for them to drive on road courses left and right, and there was more passing, more side by side racing. So it's not surprising that people don't want more courses on the schedule. They just want to keep the same amount. And Brad Keselowski kind of replied to that post and said, "We went from 2 to 6 road courses races, possibly 7 next year. NASCAR was successfully built as the primarily oval racing series. IMSA was built as the primary road course series in North America. IMSA will always do road racing better than NASCAR, and that's okay. Yes, too many road courses in NASCAR." So Brad is taking the side of the faction that is criticizing NASCAR for having too many road courses. And to Brad's credit, he's not very good at road courses, so he might be arguing on his own opinion and based on his own performance and saying that I don't like road courses. And Brad won a championship back in 2012, and back then the road courses then were Sonoma and Watkins Glen. And it was that way up until about 2021 when they had 7 road courses. I'm going to ignore the pandemic because there were a couple more then, but that was a weird year. The schedule, like so many tracks weren't racing that year, so I'm going to ignore that year. But it jumped up to 7, and I think NASCAR, it's hard to please everyone. And NASCAR at the time pleased a lot of people, pleased a lot of the critics at that time by adding more road courses to the schedule. And now people are calling for less road courses, but I really don't think NASCAR is going to listen to that because I think the NASCAR has a good balance of scheduling with different types of tracks. You have about 6 or 7 mile and a halves, the traditional ovals. You have a good amount of short tracks. You have 6 or 7 road courses, and then you have Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, and you visit each of those tracks twice. So that's about 6 super speedway races per year. So no, I don't think there are too many road courses on the schedule. I think that the magic number is 6 because you can roughly have a sixth of the schedule being road courses, and then you have the other 5/6 of the schedule. Sorry, I had a little bit of a lisp there. You have those other 5/6 of the schedule be traditional ovals or super speedways, and I think that's a good medium. Looking at my 2026 NASCAR Cup Series schedule predictions, I have Circuit of the Americas on the schedule, the San Diego Street Race. I have Sonoma. I believe I have Mexico City, Road America, Watkins Glen, and I do not have the Charlotte Roval on there. I don't have the Indianapolis Roval on there as well. So that's 6 road courses, and I think that's a pretty good amount of road courses. Then again, you have 6 races at super speedways. You have I have 16 traditional mile and a half oval races and 10 short track races. So I think that's a pretty good balance of a schedule. You have 6 road course races, you have 10 short track races, you have 6 super speedway races, and then you have the bulk of your schedule, which is 16 mile and a half races. But there you go. That's my opinion on the takes of Pete Pistone and Brad Keselowski. Let me know down in the comments. Are there too many road courses on the NASCAR schedule or maybe on the future NASCAR Cup Series schedule? So let me know down in the comments what you think. Now, moving on to a bit of a rumor that emerged last week. On last week's episode of the Closing Laps podcast, the host dropped a rumor that they've heard in the NASCAR garage that Penske might have just poached a top NASCAR prospect from either Chevy or Toyota. They didn't give any specifics there, and they didn't give specifics for a specific driver. And there's several options that Penske can do here. There's a lot of prospects here. You got Carson Kowalpel, we just mentioned. Connor Zilic is with Trackhouse, and he might end up getting promoted. You have Sam Mayer, but he's with Ford. But maybe Penske took him away from Haas. Sheldon Creed, another Ford driver. I'm looking at William Sawalich, who's had an underwhelming year with Toyota. Jesse Love is still there. You got Taylor Gray. There's a lot of top prospects in the Xfinity series. Nick Sanchez is another guy that I'm considering that could be an option there. And they also mentioned that Penske may look to promote them to the Cup Series, which makes a little bit of sense. Like Austin Cindric maybe will be the odd guy out. You have Ryan Blaney locked up for a contract. He's got to win this year. Joey Logano was last year's champion. He has a long-term contract, I believe. And Cindric, yes, he does have a win this year, but it was on a super speedway and with his dad, Tim Cindric, who was the former president of Team Penske before he was fired during the Indianapolis 500 weekend for cheating with Penske's cars. So maybe his job security is a little less secure, but there was also a report during Phoenix that Roger Penske talked to Austin Cindric and they want to continue working together for at least a year. So maybe Team Penske is looking to bring back their Xfinity Series team, and their Xfinity Series program hasn't been active since 2021. That was the last year they ran. That was the last year Austin Cindric was in the Xfinity Series before he got promoted to replace Brad Keselowski, who left after that season for RFK in 2022. So I don't know. It's a interesting rumor. Penske is a championship winning organization. They are a very attractive place to go. So I don't know who that prospect might be. I don't know what Penske has planned for said prospect. So let me know down in the comments as well. Who do you think that prospect is? And is Penske going to be bringing back their Xfinity Series program? So let me know. We'll have to wait and see how this silly season rumor pans out. Now we can finally move on to this week's news and rumors. So we have our penalty report from Sonoma. There was only one penalty assessed to the Cup Series side of things. There were 3 for the Xfinity Series side of things. But the number 51 Rick Ware Racing Pit Crew members Mark Quill Osborne and Daquam Hampton have been suspended for the next 2 Cup Series races due to the team having a loose lug nut and a wheel coming off the car after making a pit stop. That was during yesterday's race and Ware lost his right rear tire on track with 14 laps remaining. And I'm surprised that NASCAR has not assessed penalties to the number 6 RFK pit crew team or the number 54 Joe Gibbs Racing pit crew or Ty Gibbs due to the on track or on pit road scuffle, if you will. So I'm a little bit surprised by that. I gave my kind of thoughts on it. So we got our official confirmation today. Maybe NASCAR is looking at it still, and maybe we'll assess a penalty later in the week. But right now, no penalties have been handed out to either Ty Gibbs or Joe Gibbs Racing's pit crew or Brad Keselowski or the RFK number 6 crew. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe NASCAR has some more penalties to hand out later in the week. Now we got some news for the Live Fast Motorsports camp. We have Catherine Legg will be making a start and pulling double duty in the Indianapolis Brickyard 400 weekend. She'll be running the Cup Series race, the Brickyard 400, as well as running the prior day's Xfinity Series race for the number 78 BJ McLeod Motorsports team. I know Catherine Legg had a bit of a salty start to her NASCAR Cup Series career early in the year with her starts at Phoenix, but she's kind of figured it out. She's been able to stay out of the way in that number 78 Live Fast Motorsports Chevrolet Camaro, and she's had some solid finishes here and there with Live Fast Motorsports. Mexico City was a solid race. Sonoma, they finished all the laps. Chicago was another solid race. So we're seeing improvements from Catherine Legg. So I am interested to see what she'll do in the Brickyard 400 and on the Xfinity Series side of things. So good luck to Catherine Legg and that entire Live Fast Motorsports team. Now, today I was looking on my NASCAR app and I was looking at the entry list for Saturday's Xfinity Series race at Dover Motor Speedway. And I actually looked at it yesterday too. And I noticed a difference today. Kaz Grala will be driving the number 5 car for Our Motorsports instead of their full time driver, Chris Wright. And I kind of waited today to get like a follow up report. And the rumors have been true that Chris Wright has been let go by Our Motorsports. They have parted ways mutually. They have both decided to part ways. And I'm not surprised. Chris Wright is the last full time driver in points for the Xfinity Series. He is dead last in full time drivers. So I'm not surprised. He brought a lot of money to the table with sponsorship, and that's what got him that ride at Our Motorsports. That's why they kicked out Anthony Alfredo, who legitimately was running better last year with Our Motorsports and is running better this year with Alpha Prime Racing. So whatever the case, Our Motorsports, Chris Wright just wasn't good enough. The money wasn't good enough for Chris Wright. He couldn't keep bringing back those checks, and it wasn't good enough to bring back those results. He missed the race at Chicago. He didn't qualify for it at Daytona to start the year. He missed the pit road entry, slammed in the back of some other cars, caused a big crash. He said on the radio that he lost brakes, but then he admitted on pit road after the race that he just missed the braking zone and got into pit road late, and it was his mistake. So it wasn't a really good Xfinity series for Chris Wright. Kind of shades of the Haley Deegan season last year, but to be quite honest, Haley Deegan, who is now driving an IndyCar for I think it was DGM or not DGM, HDM Racing. I forget what Indy next team she's driving for, but she legitimately had better numbers than Chris Wright, and I mean that's surprising because Haley Deegan's Xfinity Series season last year was not good, but Chris Wright's has set a all time low, and like a the low was the low and the floor that an Xfinity Series driver has to meet, I guess. So Chris Wright out of the number 5 Our Motorsports Chevrolet, and Kaz Grala, who I think is one of my favorite drivers in the sport for some reason, is in at Dover. So we'll keep tabs on Kaz Grala and see if he can run better than Chris Wright. Now, moving on, yesterday, after SVG's win at Sonoma, Trackhouse Racing announced they had hired Todd Meredith as president of racing operations. So, Todd Meredith, a longtime race director and competition director at Joe Gibbs Racing, was there from the beginning in 1998, was there all the way up until 2016 when he resigned from that position, but still worked as a consultant for the organization, has now joined Trackhouse Racing as president of racing operations. Justin Marks, it seems very happy about having Todd Meredith on the team. So he said, quote, "We're thrilled to welcome someone of Todd's caliber and experience to help guide Trackhouse from the top. His focus on culture, strategy, quick decision making, and organization will be a massive shot in the arm for this company as we navigate a pivotal growth period in the history of Trackhouse racing." It's interesting to hear that Justin Marks is calling this a growing period of Trackhouse racing. They've had a lot of turnover in the last year. Ty Norris last year, the president of Team Trackhouse, left for Calling Racing. Pitbull sold his stake in the team. They opened a MotoGP team. So they've had a lot to do. Pitbull sold his stake, and then you had Daniel Suarez obviously leaving this season. They had a new investment firm invest in the team as like a partnered part owner. So I mean, Trackhouse has gone through a lot, and I would say on track, they've kind of plateaued as a team. Like in 2022, they were quickly ascending. They had Ross Chastain make it to the championship four. 2023, they took a little bit of a step back. 2024, I would say they took a little bit more of a step back in some ways. In some ways, they took a little bit of a step forward. And this year, I would say they've taken another step back. But you have Connor Zilic coming up next season, most likely in that number 99 car. Shane Van Gisbergen just won back-to-back road course races. He's won 3 now, and Trackhouse is kind of ascending in a way. So we'll see what Todd Meredith can do if he has an impact on this Trackhouse racing group. Todd Meredith also had a statement, and he said, quote, "I feel at home in NASCAR and wanted to make a return in some form. The more I talked with Justin, the more I was excited by his vision of Trackhouse racing. The team is very talented and quite successful, as you have seen in the last few months, but we want even more." So I guess we'll have to wait and see what more can Todd Meredith bring to the table for Trackhouse. So good luck to all the Trackhouse team, and welcome back to NASCAR, Todd Meredith. Now, to finish off today's episode, I have to get my suit back on. I have to retie my tie because we have another update in the ongoing antitrust case between 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. If you want a full and accurate and descriptive timeline of all that is going on with this lawsuit, go check out the dailydownforce.com. They have a really good story and really good page for all the events and tracking all the events of this antitrust case. So go check them out. Huge thank you to the Daily Downforce for keeping everything up to speed because let me tell you, this lawsuit has been very tedious to keep up with. So I'll just give you a little brief outline and timeline for this lawsuit. So in October of last year, we're almost up on a year of the lawsuit since it was filed. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports sued NASCAR after not signing this year's current charter agreement. And in that same month, about a couple weeks later, they filed a preliminary injunction so they would be able to race in 2025 as charter teams without having to sign the current charter agreement. So I guess they would probably be going off of 2024's charter agreement, but I guess. And then in November, they kind of updated their injunction request. And then in December of that year, a judge granted the injunction. However, in June, the injunction was overturned. A judge said, quote, "You can't have your cake and eat it too." And then now they are refiling their preliminary injunction as well as filing a restraining order against NASCAR, and the teams, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, were scheduled to lose their charters and have them repossessed on like Thursday. So in a couple days at the time of the recording. So the courts have to get moving and make a decision on whether or not they grant this injunction and restraining order because things are going to move quickly in court this week. The teams made a statement yesterday saying that having their charters repossessed would cause irreparable harm. Sounds familiar to me. And NASCAR has signaled its intention to immediately move or sell their charters to other entities, putting 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports in irreparable jeopardy of never getting their charters back and going out of business. And to me, this sounds very familiar to when the preliminary injunction was first filed. And now, in this case, if they do end up losing their charters here, a lot more may happen. They will lose more media revenue from the charter agreement during the race. They'll receive less race payout, and they could definitely lose their charters. That was the risk that the team signed up for when they decided not to sign for the current charter agreement and instead sued NASCAR. And I did forget to say this when I did my little recap spiel that the teams, out of everything, their biggest thing for the next charter agreement, the big thing they are fighting for is permanent charter. So they really don't have to have this same discussion all over again. And they want to make the playing field more even. And they also want a bigger voice at the table of discussions. And they also want a bigger chunk of the media revenue. Because I think Jeff Gordon said it a couple months ago that all the teams in NASCAR aren't really making a profit by running these races, and they need a bigger cut of the media pie. So I that's what mostly the teams are fighting for. I just want to make sure that is a thing that everyone remembers here. The teams also said that they are now in the discovery stage and they have uncovered new evidence that will potentially help their case. So they're kind of getting this preliminary injunction and restraining order so that one, NASCAR won't sell their charters and they'll stay as chartered teams, and two, this kind of allows them to stay in the fight, I would say, because this was a big hit by them losing their preliminary injunction for at least the current part of the case. So in December, I guess they're trying to maybe stay in the fight. That's what I'm seeing from this a little bit, and some other people are saying some different things. Maybe they're seeing some other stuff, but I'm seeing this as a way the teams can kind of hold their ground a little bit and show they're really not wavering and they're still in the fight. But the courts have to make a decision soon because if NASCAR wants to sell these charters immediately, if they are in discussions with other teams and have agreements in place to sell these charters immediately, like maybe the teams are bluffing, maybe NASCAR is bluffing on this, but if NASCAR does have plans to sell their charters immediately, this is like a kind of like a last ditch effort by the teams to kind of be able to stay in the fight, I guess, and keep their hopes and dreams of competing in NASCAR in the future and keep their like hopes of if they do end up winning this case, they'll still have charters to go back to, kind of like a home to go back to. But this is a lot of stuff, and this will move very, very quickly. So I might end up having to post another episode tomorrow on Wednesday of a court decision because Wednesday night or Thursday morning, I forget when it's supposed to take place, NASCAR may be able to repossess the charters of 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. And yeah, and a lot of stuff can happen. Like once they lose their charters, like Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace, all their sponsors, Todd Gilliland, Zane Smith, like they can all walk because some of these contracts with sponsors for both teams and some of their drivers, they have opt out clauses apparently. So if the teams don't have charters that they can provide for each of their drivers and sponsors, like they can just rip up that contract pretty much. So pivotal moment for both teams and NASCAR. So we'll wait and see what happens. I'm probably gonna have to end up posting another episode on this later in the week, but let me know down in the comments what you think. Leave a like on the video if you're listening on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel if you're also listening on YouTube. And give us a follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And that's all I got for you guys today. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.